All right, so today we're going deep on Ciri's journey and just, wow, going through all this stuff. I was really struck by like how intense everything is for her. We're talking mythical landscapes, these crazy battles, and she just constantly has to make these incredibly difficult choices.
Yeah, you really get a sense of her struggle for agency in these sources. Like everyone's trying to control her destiny, whether it's the Aen Elle or Emhyr. She's always being pulled in different directions.
That's a lot to deal with for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
So let's start with the Aen Elle world.
Yep.
This place is described as like incredibly beautiful,
Yeah.
but there's definitely something dangerous lurking beneath the surface.
It's almost like a facade, right? You have this otherworldly beauty, but then you've got these deeply rooted power dynamics that make it incredibly dangerous for someone like Ciri.
Especially for Ciri, right?
Yeah, she essentially becomes a pawn in their game, and that's particularly true when it comes to Oberon.
Right, Oberon, their king. And he's a pretty complex character.
Totally. He's full of contradictions. On the one hand, you have this incredibly powerful ruler who's lived for centuries, but on the other hand, he's driven by this desperation, this fear of death.
It makes you wonder, why would someone who's lived for so long be so afraid of dying?
Well, the sources kind of hint at it.
Hmm.
Oberon is described as being weary of life, even bored, you could say. So maybe it's not just about wanting to keep existing, but it's about what comes after death, the unknown.
That's a fascinating perspective.
It really adds this layer of tragedy to his character. I think he's trapped by his own immortality, and he's looking for an heir to make his existence meaningful somehow.
And that's where Ciri comes in, right?
Exactly. She has the elder blood, which makes her the key to continuing his lineage. At least that's how he sees it.
But that puts Ciri in a really tough spot. She's basically being forced to bear Oberon's heir, which
Wow.
she's obviously not okay with. And then there's Avalash, who promises her freedom, but he's manipulating her too.
Hmm.
Just a whole web of deceit.
Oh, yeah. Avalash, he's a tricky one. His true motives are still kind of a mystery, but you can tell he's playing the long game using Ciri to get what he wants.
And he knows she's desperate to get back to her own world, so he dangles that freedom in front of her.
Exactly.
But before she escapes, she actually runs into someone pretty unexpected, Galahad from Arthurian legends.
Yeah, it's wild, right? You wouldn't expect to see those worlds collide, but it shows how these different realms are all connected in some way.
What's he doing there?
Well, Ciri confides in him, talks about wanting to escape the Aen Elle and their schemes. It's a brief encounter, but it gives us some insight into Ciri's state of mind.
She's trapped, feeling used, and she's clinging to any hope of getting out.
Exactly.
And she does eventually escape, right?
Oh, yeah. Her escape is one of the most thrilling parts of her journey. It's a display of incredible courage, and she uses her growing powers to pull it off. And she even gets help from some unexpected allies.
I think I remember this unicorns.
Yes, unicorns, they guide her through this pathway through time and dimensions called the spiral.
The spiral. What's that?
It's still shrouded in mystery, but it clearly holds a lot of power. It lets Ciri jump between worlds and different points in time.
That sounds incredibly dangerous.
The sources describe it as disorienting and terrifying. Imagine being flung through time and space not knowing where you'll end up.
It's amazing that she can handle that.
It speaks to her resilience, for sure.
But even after she escapes, the Aen Elle world trouble seems to follow her.
Yeah, that's kind of a recurring theme in Ciri's life. No matter where she goes, she faces hardship and conflict, almost like fate is working against her.
And speaking of hardship, while all this is going on with Ciri, Geralt, and Yennefer are going through their own trials, they're battling through this war-torn world, and it sounds brutal.
It's a stark contrast to the Aen Elle world. We see Geralt and Yennefer confronted by these unimaginable horrors, having to make these impossible choices that really push their morals to the limit.
It sounds pretty bleak.
It is. The sources really don't hold back when depicting the carnage and the suffering of war.
But you said there's hope, too.
Oh, absolutely. Amidst all the darkness, Geralt and Yennefer's love for Ciri really shines through. It's what motivates them, what keeps them going.
That's powerful. Even when they're apart, their love for Ciri connects them.
Exactly. It's like a beacon guiding them through the darkness, and it's what leads them to confront Vilgefortz.
Vilgefortz, he's a fascinating villain, so
Yeah.
powerful and so cunning.
Oh, yeah. Geralt and Yennefer are pushed to their limits to defeat him. It's
Mhm.
one of the most intense and emotional parts of their journey, but they come out on top.
But it's not without sacrifice, right?
It's a hard-won victory for sure, but at least they're one step closer to finding Ciri.
Right, but just as they defeat Vilgefortz, there's this huge revelation, one that changes everything for Ciri.
She finds out the truth about her parentage, something that's been hidden from her for years.
Okay, I have to ask, who is Ciri's father? There's been so much mystery around this.
Well, the sources reveal that it's Emperor Emhyr, the ruler of Nilfgaard.
Wow, that's a big deal. So Ciri's father is this powerful emperor.
Exactly. It changes everything about her story. She's not just a young woman with extraordinary powers, she's the heir to a powerful empire.
And knowing Emperor, he's not going to let her just live a normal life. He'll want to use her for his own ambitions.
Right. Emperor sees Ciri as a way to strengthen his power and expand his empire, but Ciri, she refuses to play his game.
She rejects him, even though he's her father.
It's a powerful statement about her character and her independence. She wants to make her own choices.
That's incredible. She's so strong, but her journey doesn't end there, right?
Nope. In fact, things get even more complicated when Ciri's ability to travel through time leads her to another encounter with Galahad.
The knight from the Arthurian legends.
Yep, it just goes to show how vast and interconnected these different worlds really are.
So she's basically breaking the boundaries of reality, going to places we can only imagine.
It's quite a journey.
But there's still danger around every corner. It seems like she's never truly safe.
That's true, and that danger becomes all too real when she returns to find Geralt gravely wounded in Rivia.
Oh no, what happened?
Well, the sources are a little vague on the details, but there was some kind of conflict, a battle that almost killed Geralt. Yennefer tries to save him, but she pushes her magic too far and collapses.
So both of them are in danger.
Yes, and Ciri, facing the possibility of losing the two people she loves most, makes a drastic decision. She uses her powers to transport all of them to this unknown realm, a place where their enemies can't reach them.
Sounds like a last resort, a desperate attempt to save them. But where do they go?
That's the big mystery. The sources leave us hanging. Their fate is uncertain. We just don't know.
What a cliffhanger. It definitely leaves you wanting more, wondering what's next.
That's the power of a good story, right? It keeps you on the edge of your seat, eager to find out what happens next.
We left off with Ciri escaping the Aen Elle world. But even in her escape, there are some things that are just unsettling.
You know, one thing that really stood out to me was the whole power dynamic between Ciri and Oberon. It's not just about him wanting an heir. It feels almost predatory the way he goes after her.
Yeah, I got that sense too. The way he talks about her, it's like he sees her as a tool to get what he wants.
Exactly. And then there's that scene where he shows Ciri those illustrations. Remember those?
Oh yeah, the ones with all the suggestive poses. Ciri was definitely uncomfortable with that.
It's subtle, but it speaks volumes about Oberon and the Aen Elle. They have this warped view of power and control. And Ciri, even though she tries to act tough, you can tell she's disturbed by it.
It's just another reminder of how she's being exploited, trapped by these people who only see her as a means to an end.
And that's what drives her escape, even if it means trusting Avalash, who's still a bit of a wild card.
Okay, so let's talk about that escape. It's pretty intense. Ciri finds herself on this boat with Aen in the middle of a raging storm.
Oh yeah, that scene is so well written. The stormy night, the rocking boat, Aen telling Ciri she has to come back with him. It all builds up this feeling of claustrophobia, like something bad is about to happen.
And then Ciri does something totally unexpected. She uses the storm to escape, jumps off the boat, and disappears.
It's brilliant. She takes advantage of the chaos, uses the wind and rain to cover her escape. It's a powerful moment. You see her desperation, but also her growing mastery over her powers.
She's not just running away, she's taking control.
Exactly. And it's a real turning point for Ciri. It's when she truly embraces her agency, refuses to be anyone's pawn.
Okay, so let's shift gears for a bit and talk about what's happening in Rivia. The town's trying to recover from the war, but there's this underlying tension everywhere you look.
The sources really capture the rawness of this post-war environment. Rivia used to be this peaceful, prosperous place, but now it's a shadow of its former self.
Geralt and Dandelion show up, and it's clear the town is on edge. Not the peaceful haven it once was.
And then they go to the Dwarven district, and it's even worse. You can feel the fear and the anger there. It's a community that's been through hell.
There's that scene where Geralt sees these young men harassing a young woman. It's heartbreaking. It really shows the darkness that war unleashes, how it erodes people's humanity.
It highlights the cyclical nature of violence, how trauma just breeds more trauma.
And it's not just the humans who are suffering. The non-humans are facing even more persecution.
Yeah, the elves and the dwarves are being scapegoated, targeted because of the fear and anger that's gripping the town.
And all that boils over into a full-blown riot fueled by rumors and misinformation.
It's terrifying. Ciri gets caught in the middle of it all, trying to protect herself and her friends, and the mob mentality takes over reason, just goes out the window.
It's like they're consumed by this blind rage and suspicion.
Exactly. And just when it seems like Triss is doomed, this sudden hailstorm descends upon Rivia, scatters the crowd, and gives Yennefer a chance to escape with Ciri.
It's like fate intervened, gave them a moment of reprieve.
A reminder that even in the darkest of times, things can change unexpectedly.
Before we move on, though, I want to talk about Jari, the young scribe from Elender. He's a pretty minor character, but his story really resonated with me.
Jar is an interesting one. He's young, caught in the middle of this war, trying to make sense of all the violence and loss he's witnessed.
But even amidst all that darkness, he holds on to Ciri's medallion. It's a symbol of their connection, a reminder of the better world they both dream of.
It speaks to Ciri's impact on others. Even when she's not there, she inspires hope, a belief in something better.
It's a beautiful reminder that even in the face of horror, hope can survive. But as we go further into the sources, Ciri's fate and the fate of those she loves becomes even more uncertain.
We're at a crucial point in our deep dive now. The stakes are higher than ever. Ciri's journey is far from over, and the choices she makes are going to have a huge impact on her and the world around her.
So let's take a moment to think about everything we've discussed, because in part 3 we'll be exploring the final chapter of this epic tale. We'll unravel the mysteries surrounding Ciri's destiny and the impact her journey has on the world. So we've seen Ciri go through so much, running from the Aen Elle, dealing with the chaos in Rivia. But through it all, there are these echoes of history that I found really fascinating.
It's amazing how the sources tie Ciri's personal journey to these big historical events. Like, her story is part of the world's past, if that makes sense, like the Falka Rebellion.
Right, that was a brutal uprising that really changed things. And it turns out Ciri has a direct connection to it.
She's a descendant of Falka, this legendary figure who's seen as both a hero and a villain. It makes you think, how much does our past shape who we are today, you know?
It's a good question. Like, Ciri is carrying the legacy of Falka, this powerful sorceress who fought the system but who also did some terrible things.
Exactly. She's this almost mythical figure, both respected and feared. And Ciri, as her descendant, is carrying all that weight, that potential for good and evil.
So it adds this whole other layer to her character. And then on top of that, we have the revelation about Emperor Emhyr.
Oh, yeah. Dunny, the urchin of Erlenwald. Remember him?
Yeah, it was like a fairy tale, but way darker.
Well, it turns out Dunny is Emperor Emhyr, so
Okay.
he's not just Ciri's father, but according to some prophecies, he's also meant to be her husband.
Wow, that's a lot to process.
Yeah.
It makes their relationship even more complicated.
Right? You see moments where Emhyr genuinely cares about Ciri. He shows compassion, wants to protect her. But then there's this other side of him, this ruthless ambition that sees Ciri as a way to gain more power.
So he's trying to manipulate her, but also trying to win her over. What does Ciri make of all this?
She sees right through his games, even though she recognizes he does care for her. She sees his love, but also his willingness to hurt others to get what he wants. And in the end, she rejects him, chooses her own path.
She refuses to be controlled by anyone, even her own father.
It's a powerful statement about her strength and her determination to decide her own fate. And it's even more impressive considering everything else she's dealing with, like the Wild Hunt.
Right, the Wild Hunt, this terrifying spectral force that's constantly on her trail, like something out of a nightmare.
There are these otherworldly riders who bring death and destruction, and their leader, Aroden, seems fixated on Ciri. There are hints that their destinies are connected, somehow bound together by some ancient power.
So it's like they're two sides of the same coin, both controlled by fate. It raises questions about free will.
Yeah.
Like, how much control do we really have over our lives?
Exactly. Is Ciri in charge of her own destiny, or is she just a pawn in some bigger game? The sources leave us with these questions as we reach the climax of Ciri's journey.
We've seen her go through so much. The Aen Elle world, the war, the truth about her parents, and now the Wild Hunt. It's been a wild ride.
And it all leads up to that final scene where she finds Geralt badly wounded in Rivia. Yennefer tries to save him, but uses up all her magic and collapses.
Like, everything has been building to this moment, this desperate fight for survival.
And Ciri, facing the possibility of losing the two people she loves most, makes a life-altering decision. She uses her powers to take them all to some unknown realm, a place where their enemies can't follow.
It's a huge risk, a last-ditch effort to save them, but we don't know what happens next.
That's what makes it so powerful. We're left wondering about their fate, imagining what awaits them in this new place. Is it a safe haven or just another challenge in their story?
It's an ending full of hope and uncertainty. It reminds us that even when things seem impossible, there's always a chance for something new, something unexpected.
Ciri's journey shows the power of choice, the resilience of the human spirit, and the strength of love and loyalty. And even though her story isn't over, it gives us so much to think about. The challenges we face, the choices we make when times are tough.
It's been incredible exploring these sources and diving into Ciri's world. And even though we don't have all the answers, we've learned so much about her struggles, her triumphs, and the power of her story.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, I encourage you to keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep thinking about the mysteries of Ciri's journey. Because within those mysteries are some profound truths about ourselves and the world we live in.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Ciri's world. We'll see you next time for another deep dive into the source material.